It's WWDC Day, June 6th, and iOS 16 has some exciting things coming out. Dave and I talk about that, and we talk about some really cool things coming out in macOS Ventura. All this and more on the iPhoneography podcast. It's Monday, June 6th, and it's WWDC Day. We are recording this show the same day, but a few hours after the event, and a lot of cool things to talk about. Greg McMillan here on the iPhoneography podcast, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Dave Podner. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Greg. Happy Dub Day to you.
Yes, same to you. And I'd like to say thank you, Dave, for coming on a little earlier than we usually do because, we're about 2 hours before we normally record. So Dave had to kind of get some things done before we can come on here. And I appreciate that, Dave. So thank you again.
Oh, always glad.
Alrighty. So WWDC, it's always an exciting day for people that have iPhones, Macs, iPads, even Apple Watches. And we're just going to kind of go over a few things that are related to photography in one way or another, whether it's photos themselves or cameras or anything like that. We took some notes while we watched the event today, and we're just going to kind of just go through them here, kind of probably in the order that they were done. And so let's just dig into it. iOS 16. iOS is probably the biggest part of the event. I would say it's a close race between iOS and macOS, but I was really excited to see some of the things in iOS. So the first thing that we will talk about is the lock screen. I mean, that's the first thing you see when you pick up your iPhone. So, hey, it's got some cool things coming to it. One of the first things they showed was the fact that the clock can be changed. The font, you can change the fonts and all that stuff in the clock, and it can even hide behind some of the photos. Now, Dave, do you think that could happen with regular photos, or is that just basically with portrait mode images? Because they didn't specify, right?
No, they didn't. They were using pictures of people.
Yeah,
that could be portrait mode, but they're not necessarily portrait mode. So it may work better with portrait mode because the depth information is in there based on portrait mode. Yeah, I think that's where they're figuring what should go in front of the clock and the back. And that's something related to, I think, something else they bring up later on with trying to figure out the subject of the photo. But right. I don't think it has to be. I don't think it has to be. Also, and I know for if someone's an Android user or if someone is friends with an Android user, they're not bad people. They really aren't. But they're right now yelling. They would be yelling and screaming, saying, "We had this 5 years ago. What's wrong with you people? We had live widgets on our phone.
Yeah, so that would happen every year.
What's the big freak?" And it's the same thing on both sides. So before when this comes out, if someone puts it on as a beta and they show it off, like, "Oh, look what I can do," expect someone's going to say that instead of, "Oh, that's kind of neat."
Yeah, that's right.
Because Apple people do the same thing to Android. It's like, "Oh, I've been able to do that for years on my phone." It's like, great. Everyone steals from each other before we get that. But no, It's about time. As Lizzo says, it's about damn time. Yeah. They should have had this years ago. And the only reason I can think they haven't had it is there was like, "Oh, the lock screen only should have this on it, nothing else. It shouldn't get complicated," and everything else. And I'm thinking, honestly, so many of these things sound like someone looked how they handle complications on the watch. Mm-hmm. And like the watch with a much smaller screen can hold a lot of information if you wanted to.
Sure.
And why can't we just do? They call them widgets, but they're complications. If you have an Apple Watch, they call them complications because that's what traditional watch people call it. So, like on my watch, I have the one I use is like really dense, where I have my 2 running tracking apps, The podcast app I have, my rings for exercise, the date, the weather, the battery watch percentage, and a link to my heart rate sensor.
Oh yeah,
all on the watch face. And by the way, a watch.
Yeah, it even tells the time. Well, and that's a lot of information. Even tells time.
Yeah, and it's a very, very small, teeny tiny screen. So I think they finally figured out, hey, we can do that with the phone with a much bigger screen. We just put a little bar of complications that people want to throw in.
And I noticed
it sounds like they're opening it. They'll let people do API, so you're not just stuck.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed throughout the keynote was they had a lot of different times they said, and one of our most requested things or whatever, right? I think they're listening to people finally, which is a good thing because, people want things and I think they're actually starting to listen. So that's kind of a good thing. One of the other cool things about these home screen or the lock screen is that you can have multiple lock screens. So you can have different pictures, you can have them all set up differently, change the font color, all that stuff. They're very, very customizable compared to what we've been used to. And you can even have the one that really caught my attention was the one that you can have multiple photos in the same lock screen. And the photos will change every time you either tap it, wake up your phone, or they can go hourly or daily. And that is really, really cool because sometimes you want to see a different wallpaper, and rather than going into the settings and changing the wallpaper, all that stuff, it'll just do it automatically. You can select the photos you want, and it works. You know what? Like you said about the watch, it does that on the watch, and it's been doing it for a couple of years already. It's ridiculous why they've taken so long to get this stuff on the phones, but it's a good thing that they did.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you can either pick the group of photos you want, or you can let it pick the photos intelligently. I'm not too sure because, like Ruth uses, we have the same iCloud account. Yeah. We never created separate ones years ago when we both got phones. So all the photos we take are in one photo library.
Okay, yeah.
So all the photos she takes for her jewelry business are in the photo library.
Oh, yeah.
So just letting it intelligently pick for me or someone who shares a lot of things like that may not be the best in the world.
Yeah.
But saying, hey, use this folder, or use this or use that would be great. Yeah. And like I said, we're not poo-pooing it. We're saying, thank you. And it's about time, but thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's going to be a very fun way to deal with the lock screen, I think. So the next point we have is, so last year they introduced visual lookup in photos. So if you have a picture of, say, a rose, the little eye down and below the image where it says info, there's little stars that come on there, and that means there's extra information. So you tap that, and you get the information on the photo, like exposure or location, if you have that enabled and all that stuff. But it also has visual lookup for plant, say, and then you tap that and it shows a couple of different images of roses, and it even gives you a little, I don't know if it's a Siri knowledge thing or a Wikipedia thing, but about that plant. It's not always perfect, but a lot of times that I've tried it anyway, it seems to work quite well. So to expand on that, this year, what they've done is, let's just say, Dave, you took a picture of one of your dogs. You can tap and hold on the dog in the photo, and you'll see these, funny looking swirly things or whatever, almost like when Halide does a true depth image, when you're doing, or not a true depth, but a depth image, when it's sorting out what the foreground is in the background, that kind of thing there. So and you tap it and hold it for probably 2 or 3 seconds, however long it takes to figure out what is in the foreground or what the subject of the photo is. Then it'll pop up with a little thing that says copy or share. So you can copy that and say paste it in a message to somebody, and it will be just the dog, just a cutout of the dog.
Mhm.
And I think that is freaking amazing.
Yeah. Now, this is one where I didn't hear whether it was or was not only portrait only, or if it's saying we're basing this off of machine learning and not just the depth map.
Yeah, I think it's going to
Because-
be machine learning.
Yeah. So this
Myself.
is, I think, combining that with the portrait or the lock screen picture where the person can be put in front, the
Mhm.
subject can be put in front of the time. It's using the same machine learning thought here.
Yeah.
So that to me, this to me is because at one time, admittedly years ago, you needed full-blown Photoshop or something on that nature to actually do something like that.
Yeah, and
They
masking
cut
and all
out
that
the
stuff.
subject. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now this is also telling me, this is Apple saying, look what you can do built in. You don't
Mhm.
have to write your own code for this. Well,
Yeah.
like there are apps that do that.
Mhm.
I have apps that, like there's a
Like
couple apps
Polar
I do
does
where
stuff like that.
Yeah, but also just for editing, not editing the photos, but like you can cut out and like make an icon.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, or but they'll have their own built-in. But if Apple says, you know what, you don't have to do that. Just call to our library, and you can pull it out that way.
Mhm.
Use the library to cut to tell the front from the back. And if that's kind of built in, you're going to see that a lot more apps, I think.
Yeah.
Like a background erase, especially if it does a good job at it. Because there are apps I use, even after it does it, you're like, oh, it missed this, or it messed up on this, or it got pretty close there, pretty amazing close, but not quite there yet. So if they're offering that built in, that to me is a big deal.
Now they would have to have an API for that, though, right? Before developers can take advantage of.
I think they probably will, just because it's in two locations. It's in photos, and I'm assuming it's using the same machine learning for the lock screen for separating the photos.
Oh yeah.
Trying to figure out what's the main part and what's the background. It's the same, the same thought process. So it should just be, I think you're trying to have more hooks where people can do things without having to write 100% code on their homegrown code on their own. If they don't want,
so
if they want to,
baked right into the operating system. Yeah,
exactly.
That'd be cool.
Like,
that would definitely be cool.
Yeah, kind of like how Apple. I don't want to say with the first, but they were one of the popular ones that had spell checking built into the operating system.
Oh yeah.
If you have a program on a Mac, you've had spell check for decades. Or Windows, if you didn't have something built in, you didn't have spell check until a couple years ago.
In the operating system?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Up until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you didn't, you like whatever, unless you built in your own spell checker, it was by program. It wasn't operating system.
Yeah. Interesting.
So having that just saying, I don't need to code. Like if you're a developer, I don't have to code that. I can spend time on something else, and I can use the operating system building stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
They were really pushing that. So I think that's a big deal. So I'm hoping they'll be able to do something where, and they said it's another app. It didn't say it had to be an Apple app.
Oh, yeah.
They use messages because that's already been rewritten for iOS 16.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping, if you want to use it in Word, if you use Word, or, Adobe, if you do Adobe Lightroom or something like that, you could copy, paste it in there, and, So I'm assuming it's going to have to be on that nature, which would be kind of neat.
I hope
do more things.
Yeah, I hope your assumption is right on that one. That's pretty cool. So we compared notes, and when we did that, you noticed a couple of things that I missed. So what's that one? What's the first thing that you noticed?
The first thing is expanding visual lookup to video.
Oh, yes.
You'll be able to now pause the video and take the text, or look at a piece of text, press on it, and go right to translate, because translate now operating system is OS level now. So you'll be able to translate or say, oh, here's a sign that something is, the example they gave was like 1.5 pounds.
Yeah.
And they were able to long press on it and say, oh, this is the amount US dollars, because the conversion's built in, So, and the fact that you'll be able to, now this is something Google Translate has had. So this is Apple, again, playing a little catch up. Mm-hmm. Say, I'm going to bring out the Translate app, open up the camera, and it'll live translate. Instead of having to take a picture, I just hold it up to said sign and it'll live translate.
Yeah.
And not only live translate, but it'll make it live text. So you'll be able to highlight and,
copy and paste Yeah,
copy, paste, or look up. Let's say you're looking at a menu. And, occasionally me and Ruth go out for Indian food. We love it. But we're like, okay, what is it?
Yeah.
Even when they give you the description, but they give you the description, and a couple places we go to, we never disliked anything there.
Yeah.
But we're like, okay, it says, vegetables in a spicy, tasty tomato-based sauce. But what is it? Details,
Yeah.
So sometimes I have to go in there and I have to, do a search on it and say, oh, that's what that is. Okay. Or, okay, yeah, we'll like this, that doesn't really match our taste. But, being able just to translate, boom, 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 makes it a whole lot easier. And the fact, like I said, video is kind of, when you get video involved, that's a next level from photos.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because we all know we've tried to pause video.
Oh, yeah.
And it's always blurry because it's video. The video resolution still does not match the still photo resolution. It can't. The processing, the whole churning behind the scenes, it doesn't match it. But they can do this with video, means they can do it on lower quality stuff, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good catch, because I remember seeing that now that you mentioned it, but I never thought to write it down as but it's camera related. So definitely throwing it in there is perfect.
And I would say they're giving hints and tips of augmented reality.
Yeah,
maybe not for a headset this year. Maybe not even next year. But you can see where, visual lookup, an expanded visual lookup, video being able to translate by looking at it. You have a pair of Apple glasses and let's say they make it where it's augmented, not virtual reality.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So you put on your glasses as a tourist, which you're going to look goofy. Well, in Apple, they may not look goofy, but it's, or if, let's say you're not doing touristy, if it's a business related, you put on your glasses and you're working on something. And then all of a sudden let's say industrial, you're working on something, you want to pull up a manual. Literally, it's like out of Iron Man. You're pulling up a manual and you're looking at the manual projected here while you're working on what you're working on here.
Yeah.
Or tutorial, or you're pulling up, okay, let's see here. Do we have inventory of this part? Well, let me bring up our inventory screen. Okay. And do we have, no, we don't have inventory on that. Okay. You're basically a truly hands-free computer with your image projected in front of you.
Yeah. And if you really pay attention to Apple, it's not hard to see that they are going that way, the way of augmented reality, and then probably virtual reality to some extent too. They're not about to be left behind in that kind of technology. No. So, but like you said, with the Android people saying, well, we could do that for 5 years now. Well, Apple they're always behind, but when they do put it out, more so in recent years than in past years, it usually works pretty good. So they'll want it to work flawlessly, I think, before they do put it out. So
and since we just hit the going away of the iPod a couple of weeks ago, they weren't the first portable music player. They weren't the first smartwatch. They weren't the first smartphone. They weren't really the first computer.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's just what Apple, and not only that, Apple's really good at marketing.
Oh yeah. Well,
Google
for the most part, they've had a couple of hiccups, but yeah.
Oh yeah, they take up, but overall, Google is not great at marketing. So that's why I think Google Glass died. It wasn't ready. It wasn't ready for general public. The people they gave it to were technology people who would appreciate it, but not stout. The general public, like, they didn't know these people. These were not people the general public would go, oh, that person over there is using it, I'm going to use it now. Other technology.
And I think the timing was bad. I think the timing was bad for that too, because at that time, Google was not the most trusted company. Not that they are now, but they're doing a much better job of security and privacy for their customers.
Yeah. And even if they aren't, the people they're comparing them to are doing significantly worse.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Like they said, if a bear's running after you, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You have to be faster than the slowest person.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so talking about privacy. Moving on to your next point here.
Sharing. They did a fair bit of stuff about sharing. And this one here, Dave, is probably something that you and Ruth could take advantage of quite nicely. Yeah. And that is an iCloud shared photo library. So if you and Ruth wanted to, you can get your own separate iCloud accounts and then use an iCloud shared photo library where, so photos that are shared, they can be selected manually based on start date or certain people in the photos. But you can also get smart suggestions, like you mentioned earlier, to add photos to the library. Yeah. Now, let's see. You can automatically, you can share automatically. This is kind of a cool thing. You can share automatically if other members are nearby. So, say you and Ruth go to a museum. And no, that's a bad example because taking pictures in a museum is probably not good.
For me, you know what the thing is? I can see this for two big things. And we're just finishing up the season of graduation season. Oh, yeah. So I can see if you're going to a graduation or if you're having a graduation party, you could say to, you and your friends, hey, we're going to set this up ahead of time. If they all have iPhones, say, okay, we're going to share the photos. We're going to put this in a shared folder. We're going to set it up. Hopefully it's easy to figure out. It's like, okay, us five are going to share it on this date. And so we're going to take pictures. That way it's automatically shared in the group.
Right. Yeah.
That way you don't have to worry about, oh, I took 30 photos. Oh, I took 20 photos. I took this photo of this. Well, we're going to have to, how are we going to get all these photos together from everyone taking it? Like,
you're going to have them all together.
And it's all in the same folder. Edits will be done across. So this is really collaborative photo taking. And I can see birthdays, graduation, any event where you're going to have multiple people that it won't be easy to share after the fact.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. I think it's going to be a really cool thing. Now, the other thing that I thought was really cool was in the camera app coming up in iOS 16, there will be a shared library button included in the app interface. So it'll be at the top of the screen. So if you want to take a photo and share it to that shared library, there's a button you can hit. And then when you take it, bang, it goes on your phone. It also goes on the other phones that are in that shared library. So I thought that was really cool. I wish I'm going to have to go back to that scene and I'm going to have to freeze frame where they showed that just to see if there's anything else in that camera UI that might hint to something else that's coming up.
Yeah.
All I noticed
I
was
would
the sharing
say
button.
you won't be able to see it. You probably won't be able to see it because they're really good at only showing what they want to see.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
They're really good at that.
So that's iCloud shared photo library, and I'm sure there's probably a lot more to it than even what we're mentioning now. But now you said that there was a tweet that you saw.
Yeah, from Sebastian DeWitt.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the Apple Room Plan scanning tool. Where
I'm
right
just looking
now,
at it now for the first time.
Yeah, there are apps out there where you can, use your iPhone to kind of follow the lines in the room and then follow things and manually put in things and have a room plan. This is built into the operating system where you just you scan the room. It notices, hey, this is a window. This is a cabinet. This is a thing. This is a seating area. And it will make a 3D model of that room with everything in it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Then you can, and so the fact that it's built in and not just, again, something built in where a developer like a Lowe's, Home Depot, a painting company, a store like IKEA, you could scan your room. It will figure out what's in there. And you could say, okay, do this. And you can try out different things. Or like, well, I have this here. What would happen if I put a window in here? Or, I'm thinking about putting flooring in. Let me just scan. Okay, how much is a square foot based on not just how big the room is, but room.
Yeah.
Or what happens if so that kind of being built in as part of the augmented reality. And just the fact you just have to stand there with the phone and sweep the room. That's kind of, to me, that's pointing towards what they want to do with the augmented reality, but also and I'm kind of stealing here from Renee Ritchie a little bit, well, good amount, but Apple doesn't put out features. It puts out what you can do with it.
Oh yeah.
Like the NFC chip. There's more you could do with NFC chips than what Apple allows you to do. In fact, they're kind of getting in trouble with the European Union because they're locking it down so much where people are saying, hey, I want to use that chip you got in there, but you're keeping it out so you can keep the market for yourself. And that's not fair. But Apple does not say we have an NFC chip. They say we have Apple Pay. Well, Apple Pay is run through NFC. You can buy little NFC markers and, do things. Before we move out on this, there's something else I remembered that they had I think is a big deal too. I hate to, but talking about selling what you can do with it and not just here's a piece of technology, the medicine part.
Oh yeah.
And they talked about this in Apple Watch where you'll be able to take a picture of your medicine bottle. It'll read it. And you can say, okay, I take this medicine at 8 a.m. And so if you have a watch or I imagine on your lock screen, it will say, this is your medication. And and this is all done on device for security reasons. It'll say, oh, by the way, assuming that this particular thing is legal in your area, this interacts with marijuana. Well, because it does say marijuana. If it's legal where you are, it'll say, by the way, this medication interacts with marijuana. Do not take if you're, do not drink or, what indications.
It gives you a warning if it's not compatible or whatever. Yeah.
Right. So, but it will say that, and you'll have a list of your medication that says, okay, here's your medication, here's the thing here, and here's the thing here. It's like, and it does that from the camera. So it uses the camera to scan in your medicine bottle. And then it uses that, if you have an Apple Watch specifically, to give you a reminder on your wrist to say, oh, by the way, here's your medications you should be taking.
Yeah.
And I like the interactions too.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about that too is that you don't have to have an Apple Watch to do that because the phone will do it for you as well. But it's just it's a nice convenience that it kind of vibrates on your wrist and to remind you. And it's for supplements too. It's not just like prescription medications. It's for supplements and whatever. And I know right now I'm probably going to take advantage of that feature because I always forget to take my vitamins.
And there's I don't know where they're pulling the interactions off of. I mean, all that's publicly available, but
they said where they got that stuff from, but I can't remember where it was. So it was an entity of some sort.
Yeah, because there's basic things like, and I know this because of my mother-in-law. She takes cholesterol medication. Mm-hmm. Well, she can't eat grapefruit. The grapefruit interacts with her cholesterol medication. Completely, wow. It basically makes it easier for it to be absorbed, and it puts too much into her bloodstream. And that's all. That's a lot of cholesterol medication. I don't know if it's all, but the popular ones they say do not take with grapefruit. So I'm assuming it'll say, oh, by the way, here's your medication. By the way, here's some indications of what to do and what not to do. Because
that would be good if it did for sure. Yeah,
no one reads all those pamphlets, and there's so many weird indications out there that you don't think of. Yeah, you think, oh, right. I'm eating this food, I'm safe, but maybe not, because certain vitamins are water soluble and some are fat soluble. Where like vitamin C is water soluble. If you try to OD on vitamin C, you're going to pee it out. Literally, you're going to pee it. Vitamin A though isn't. So you could OD on vitamin A if you take too much. You easily with pills you could OD on vitamin A. But if they'll say, "Oh, I'm taking vitamin A," oh, don't take more of this because you go, "Oh, okay, I didn't realize that." Having that information right in front of you instead of looking online or, like I said, I don't know how it is in Canada, but generally when you get a new script, you have the little indication. Saying,
we have those. Yeah.
Take this, look at this, here's and it's like 3 pages worth of small text. And
it's like the commercials. It's 3 seconds of what it's good for, and then 27 seconds of what it's not good for, or what it can do to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a good catch too. Again, another camera-related thing that I saw, and I remember now that you mentioned it, but I just I don't know why I didn't even write it down. But
here's why. Because, like I said, we went back to the hour and 45-minute event, where the last couple of events were an hour. Or a fast hour, but it was only an hour. Yeah, they went back to the same length they did for the in-person events. So that was an hour and a half.
Oh yeah.
So they threw a lot of details at you.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. And I had the dog on my lap, so I was trying not to disturb her too much. I was writing on my notepad and stuff. So the next item is the True Depth camera can be used to create a personalized spatial audio profile. And you know what? I think that's all we'll say about that, because I don't understand that much about it. And I mean, if you really understand what that's all about, Dave, go ahead. But if it's
not really, and honestly, you need AirPods. You need the newer AirPods that do spatial audio too,
which I have, and they're really cool, because if I'm watching something on my iMac or on my phone, it works. I got my Apple TV is too old for it to work, but I mean, if I'm watching something on my iMac and I turn my head to the right, all the sound goes to the left ear, because that's where the sound's coming from. And that's basically it. I mean, I'm sure there's a little more to it, but that's,
I'm assuming with the camera, it's using it similar to, if anyone's ever set up like a Dolby 4.1, 5.1 system, where you have to know that speaker's that far away in that location, and your sound, your subwoofer's there, and it's here, and and it says, well, it should be that far behind you at that angle and that many that far distance, and this should be here, and this should be here, because otherwise it won't. So that you can use your camera to say, okay, here's my room. Now figure out how where the sound should be coming from.
Yeah. Well, that will, maybe throughout the week, maybe somebody will tweak something out a little.
Oh yeah,
a little
because
more
they have a
information
whole
about
week
that.
worth of deep depth. After all, I did not see anything that even hinted. They even gave a hint at a 48 megapixel camera, and that's the big rumor for the fall, where they'll have a 48 megapixel, then they'll stitch it down to a 12, but you'll have you won't have a zoom, but you'll have a higher resolution, so you'll be able to have better digital zoom. But I didn't see anything that talked about, by the way, our new image processing can handle zooming in better. And
of course they're not like you said, they're only going to tell you what they want you to know right now too, right? So yeah, but
little things like that could be in the details and the individual ones where they talk about the ability to change the resolution or change the zoom, and you're like, wait a minute, that would be useful if you have
if you had a 48 megapixel
squeezing it down. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, so that's why we're expecting it. But so that's the deep technical stuff where you really have to really know what you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. So iOS 16, it's always exciting, and it will be available on devices that go back as far as the iPhone SE second generation. So that's the one that came out just before the iPhone 8, 8 Plus, and 10 came out. So what year that was exactly, I don't know. But I mean, the iPhone SE originally was shaped like the iPhone 5S or the iPhone 5, I believe. And then, so the SE second generation, it was shaped like the iPhone 8, which is the same shape as the new SE that just came out. So if you have an iPhone that goes anything like 12, 13, 12, 11, 10, down to that SE second generation, you will be able to use iOS 16. And don't expect to get every feature in the older devices like that. Some of it will only work on the newer ones with better processors and stuff like that. But I'm sure the things like the lock screen customizations and things like that will probably work on, the oldest available iPhone for this operating system. And I've got my 10s Max here, and as soon as I can, Dave, I'm putting the beta on just to play around with it and see what comes up. So
they haven't announced that yet, right?
No, it's in July that it comes out for the public.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've got a bit of time to wait yet. And, that gives them time to iron out some of the bugs too, with the developers and whatnot. So, and it gives the developers time to get their apps ready for a public beta where everybody's going to, give it a try and hopefully not break it. So next is macOS. And there was a lot of talk about it being called macOS Mammoth. And because there's a place in California called Mammoth, and I don't know much about it, but what they've done is they've called it macOS Ventura. Where Ventura is, I'm not sure. I think it's something to do with Highway 1. Jefferson Graham on the iPhone Photo Show, he's done a photo walk series along Highway 1 down in California, and I'm not sure if he's hit Ventura or not, but he will definitely know about it. So, look on the iPhone Photo Team website in that community for something from him. I'm sure he'll put something out about it. But so what's new in macOS Ventura that's photography related? The first thing I got is Spotlight has been updated or will be updated to find pictures in the photos library. So that's kind of a cool thing. You hit the Spotlight icon in your menu bar on your Mac, or just hit Command Shift on the keyboard and brings up the Spotlight search bar, and you can punch in probably a person's name or blue car, for instance, and it might show you pictures from your photo library as well as web searches. So kind of a handy thing, eh, Dave?
Mm-hmm. I hate to say it, I'm still waiting for the search to get better on both iOS and Mac. I know it's getting better each time, but it's
so
still,
we'll see how much.
Right. Yeah. I'm still comparing it to Google Photos, and it's still, I like the fact in Google Photos that you can tag, let's say, individual pets or individual people a lot easier you can in Apple. So, like I said, they are getting better, and I know they were kind of working behind the eight ball. Google had a head start, so it's just a matter of their software getting better. So,
and there's the fact that Google is a search company, right?
Right.
That's what they started out as.
Exactly. And Apple's trying to do as much as they can privately versus Google, where it's uploaded to a server where you can do the server and have billions of photos, not just your thousands of photos on your phone. So 6 of one, half dozen the other.
Yeah, that's right. So the most exciting thing that I saw on the macOS side was a thing called continuity camera. And this is awesome, but it's a bittersweet thing because you can use your iPhone as a webcam, which a lot of people do, but they have to plug their camera. You can get it to work with Wi-Fi, but it's kind of sketchy, I think. But with an app like, with an app like Camo from, I forget the developers or the company that puts it out, but there's an app called Camo, and you can use that as a webcam plugged into your Mac. And, it just gives you a much better camera than the ones that come in these devices, in the iMacs and the MacBooks and whatnot. So it's a shame, but it's probably going to put somebody like that out of business or close to it, because unless these companies can come up with some features that are much more appealing than what comes with continuity camera, because you can. Okay, so in the keynote they showed these little holders that it actually worked like a MagSafe thing. Your phone sticks to it; it just sits on top of your computer, and bang, you got your webcam. But you don't even have to wake up your iPhone. It works wirelessly. It just goes. We'll see how good it is when they put it out, but it just works. And if you have okay, I'm going to back up because I'm getting too excited. Okay, deep breath. Okay, so continuity camera utilizes the ultra wide camera, so that gives you center stage, which first came out on the iPads. I believe it was the iPad Pro, maybe, where in a FaceTime call, it would follow you around without moving the iPad, but there's a wide enough view that it would actually crop it in, but it could also follow you around and make it look like the camera's moving. And so continuity camera will do that with your iPhone. And one of the coolest things was desk view. While it's got one camera looking at you, like say the wide camera looking at you, the ultra wide will somehow be looking down at your desk and give like an over the shoulder type of view. Yeah. I thought that was just absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah. Especially when they showed it being used and it did not look like you were looking from a very skewed angle.
Yeah. Cielo de la Paz, who we've had on the show before, commented about that on Twitter. And she said it was almost like witchcraft. So I commented on her tweet and I said, the only thing I can think of is it's using the LiDAR sensor, but I don't think it can get down that angle. But it maybe uses that LiDAR sensor and a whole pile of computational stuff to alter that image to look like it's being shot overhead. And because it looks like it's coming from the ceiling. Yeah. And it's doing it instantaneously.
The only thing I could think of, if you do take a photo and you need to straighten it, you can do that in the built-in photos and other apps that'll let you do it. unless it's taking that image and saying, okay, this thing on a desk is square. I'm assuming this thing is actually square. So it's using that as a reference, correcting for the angle, using the angle also to figure out the height above it. It's I don't want to say it's easy, but it's pretty straightforward geometry. If you know how far you're above and angles, that you can then say, okay, here's what it looks like. And now we're going to put some transformations on this image to make it look like it's straight above. That's now, like I said, it's straightforward, but it's not easy.
It's
like I said, if you look at the map, it's basically angles, it's addition, subtraction angles, it's trig. So it's nothing above high school, but trying to do that live on a video and not have it look like crap, which it could, that's the mind-blowing thing. So
now
that may be limited to higher ends.
Yeah. I wonder if they have the ability to, instead of shooting frame by frame video, like, okay, looking at my desk, I've got my keyboard, I've got my trackpad, I've got my mouse on my tray that pulls out from under the desk. And that's all I've got on here. But now there's my hands. I wonder if they have the ability that anything that's static and doesn't change from one frame to the next doesn't need to be included in the video. You know what I mean? Sure. So it's segmenting out anything that's like moving.
Compression. Yeah, it's some kind of compression added on top of it, because otherwise it'd be way too much.
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, and also
see that
like
work
I said,
and
in real life, not just here's something that is, but to see multiple people have it and different setups. And because I have the old 27-inch iMac, I can't just, because I have a curved area, I don't know if the thing will work. The little thing that goes on the back, because what they showed was, a flat top, a square top, where mine has the rounded part. So I don't know if there's additional issues with that or not.
I think if you were able to just get your phone there somehow, whether it's with clamps or whatever, and have it have the front face of the phone the same as the front face of your Mac, I think that's all that would be necessary. Yeah, because that's basically how they showed it.
Yeah. But I'm kind of curious to see like you said, the details. And it's one thing to say we're trying it on what we have, and now we're going to give millions and hundreds of millions of people a chance to use it. Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see.
And you know what? We won't have to wait too long to see that, because the beta is in the developers' hands already. So I bet you somebody has something on Twitter by tomorrow about that, if not already. So another thing about the continuity camera is that it can use studio light in portrait mode to brighten up your face, and actually darken the background, because you can you could put the video in portrait mode. I could do that with my webcam on this new iMac, because it's a high def and it's got that portrait mode thing and all that stuff. But it'll be interesting to see how it works on with the continuity camera from the phone. I'm sure it's going to work quite nicely, because and of course they're showing an iPhone 13 Pro Max on the thing. So
of course,
I would say anything.
It'll probably work with the 12 too. Anything with
I'm sure it'll work with the 12, probably even the 11. I think the 10S and the 10 might be a bit of a stretch, but interesting to see what the compatibility will be like.
That's where something like Camo may have some survivability, is saying we can work on these older models that Apple won't work with built-in.
Yeah, that's right.
At least for the time being.
Yeah, I hope they can survive this.
Plus, Camo does work on Windows too. It works on Windows. I think.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, they're fine.
So I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
For Mac or PC and Androids and testing. So That's where the cross-platform compatibility will be the good thing.
Incubator is the developing company. That's the name of the company that put it out, is Incubator, I think. Don't quote me on that because
it's reincubate. Yeah.
Reincubate, something like that. Yeah.
I have an article about it. So I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but now
So I hope
telling us. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was
just going to say, I hope they survive.
Like I said, the cross-platform compatibility, I think, will help them out a lot. If they can add additional features where Apple's kind of giving you the base, But this is also Apple telling you, by the way, these webcams ain't getting any better than what they are right now. We have the best camera out there, but we're not going to put them in your MacBook Air, your iMac, your studio display. They're not getting any better. If you want better than what we're giving you, use your iPhone.
Yeah, that's right. And so my iMac is last year's, and it was the first one to ever have an HD webcam in it.
The 1080, yeah.
Excuse me, the 1080p. The iMacs or the MacBooks, the Air and the Pro that they introduced today, they have the same camera in them, exactly the same. I remember listening to the specs on them, and it's pretty good, but it's not as good as an iPhone by any means. So,
no. Like I said, I like the Studio Light. The Studio Light, I think, will be a big help for people. Depending on how much, as long as it's not putting a lot of grain or artifacts into it, I can see that as a big help.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So the last thing that I had on that continuity camera thing was that Apple's working with Belkin to produce these holders, that we talked about, where they put on the top of the iMac or the MacBook. So be interesting to see what kind of accessories they come out with that. macOS Ventura will be compatible on Macs that were made in 2017 or newer. So I'm not sure which models it is, but if it was made in 2017 or newer, then you should be able to use macOS Ventura. So, so we're not really going to talk about iPadOS, because anything that they mentioned photography related in iOS is pretty much going to be the same in iPadOS. So there's still so much in common in those two operating systems.
Right.
So, basically that's our WWDC coverage for photography. And I think there's some pretty exciting things there. And there's a lot of other stuff. Like we could talk for 2 hours on WWDC, but no, we're not going to do that.
And the fact that even though they had people in person,
outside,
it was still recorded. There wasn't a mix of Tim Cook on stage throwing it to a video. So everyone who was there just watched the same video we did. Then they got to play with the devices. Yeah,
and then they had people on stage. They had the State of the Union and all that stuff, and and all this stuff. If you want to see all this stuff, you can get the WWDC app, I think it is, and you can watch the presentations. And if you can decipher anything that's coming out maybe in the fall or in iOS that obviously we didn't talk about, or good luck, because they talk in complete 100% nerd jargon, and sometimes it's very difficult to understand. But sometimes if you watch like I went back and watched the first time they talked about portrait mode at WWDC, and it was pretty interesting to hear, even though I didn't understand it all, but it was pretty interesting to hear, how they come up with it and how they implemented it and all that stuff. So sometimes it can be pretty cool stuff if you're into that kind of thing, but and it's all free.
I just sent you a link that you put in the notes that is a link directly to the platform State of the Union address.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave.
That's an hour. It's only an hour, 10 minutes. Yeah, it's an hour and 10 minutes. So it's not like it's that long.
Yeah.
But that's the deep dive. That's the deep dive.
Okay.
So
cool.
That's the nerdy. This is not the Craig Fittertini's lowering himself down through a magic hole all the way down as he catches his phone as he falls. No, this is the hi, I'm on stage. I'm here to tell you about all the wonderful stuff that, I'm not denigrating the people doing that, but their main focus is, let me tell you about all the technology, not let me put a show on for you.
Yeah. So I'll definitely put that in the show notes. I'll put a link to the Apple website where you can see all this stuff. You can see previews for everything. Pretty much everything they talked about in the keynote will be on their website. Excuse me. And check it out. It looks like some pretty fun stuff. So all right. So that's WWDC. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now we'll just go over some recent pictures that we took. And so Dave, looks like you and Ruth went out in the town for a
it was
while,
actually just me. It was actually
really?
just me. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Ruth had a meeting with her jewelry business. So I actually, it was close to downtown. So I decided to do a touristy thing.
Oh, cool. Okay. Because I always loved looking at these pictures of Pittsburgh. This is good stuff.
Yeah. And luckily the weather was great. In fact, it was some clouds would have been nice just for having contrast in the sky.
Yeah.
When there's no clouds, it kind of throws things off. So my two of my 3 photos are actually composite. So I kind of snuck in extra photos.
Oh yeah, that's okay.
But what I did is now you will hear people outside of Pittsburgh call them funiculars. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. We just say inclines. Pittsburgh used to have tons of these 100 plus years ago, because it was the only way to get from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill. And they used to have inclines where you would drive your car on it or delivery truck and take it up and down the hill. And unfortunately, those are all gone.
So they were big enough to hold a vehicle?
Some other ones, yeah.
Oh,
there were ones where you could actually put a vehicle on there and take it from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And especially a lot of these were pre-car. So you have your horse-drawn, delivery wagon.
Yep.
The horses couldn't make it up that hill easily, pulling stuff.
Yeah.
So you go on
there.
It is
pretty steep, isn't it?
Oh, it's exceptionally steep. Yeah. And now, unfortunately, there's only 2 left. They're big touristy things. There's one that is the Duquesne incline, which goes up to Duquesne Heights. And their one is called the Monongahela incline, the Mon incline, which goes
how far
from Mount
away
Washington.
from they are from each other?
They are around a mile and a half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're around a mile and a half. Because what I did is I parked at the bottom of the one incline, took it up, walked to the other one, took it down, and walked back.
Oh, yeah.
And I just got a little shy of 3 miles from the whole round trip.
Interesting.
But they're both really old inclines. We're talking like 1880s. And they're still using the original cars. And they're using the original but I shouldn't say original. I think the one had their motor replaced like in 1920.
Wow.
But the cable and like the giant cables and everything they use, they are 100 years old. And some parts of it are even older. So it works just like an elevator, where you have each car has an emergency extra quick cable. So, if something happens to the giant steel cable, you're not going to plummet to your death.
Right.
So it is exceptionally safe. But the first
And
shot here is...
Yeah, we should mention, what this shot consists of for anybody that doesn't have an opportunity to look at their phone and see the picture.
So this is me taking a shot from the inside, going up, and it's nice thing. And now you can tell that these are not just touristy stuff, because you can see the windows aren't spectacularly clear, because during the week, people take these things up and down to get into work.
Yeah.
People live on top of the hill. Instead of driving in and paying parking downtown, they'll either take a bus or they'll walk to the incline, take the incline down, and then get into town. So, basically, this is me going up the Duquesne incline. But this was done on Saturday, so it's all touristy people. You unfortunately have one person who looks a little unhappy. I don't know if he's unhappy I was taking a photo or if he was just grumpy in general, unfortunately, on the right.
Yeah, who knows?
But there was a little kid who's just kind of pointing stuff out, just absolute bawling and just having fun. Yeah. And this
how long does it take to go up?
It takes a few minutes. It doesn't go really quick. But like I said, it's basically you get on at the bottom station and you hear it's like an old train. You hear the click, 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 click as it's moving up. And no, trust me. It's if you're afraid of heights, it probably won't be good for you. Or, even though I have problems with roller coasters, I don't have problems with this because you're moving slow enough. And you're even though you're enclosed, but you're still open to the air. But these, like I said, these were put in back when Pittsburgh was full-blown steel mill area. So these were not touristy looking over pretty green and modern buildings when it came out. This was people who, there were two ways, literally at the time, there were two ways to get up the hill. You get in, if you had money, you took the incline, or if you didn't have money, you walked the city steps on the side of the hill.
Yeah.
And this is a 500 to 600 foot elevation climb.
Wow.
Going up. So so basically this is just a shot kind of looking out the windows. You have the city in the background and the people in the foreground looking at it. And I did some editing in Polar to kind of correct, because trying to look out a window when it's that bright and the inside's dark. So I did some editing, but I just love the look of you're in here kind of looking out.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you can see detail in the ceiling as well. The exposure latitude's pretty decent considering it's so bright outside. It looks like it's probably midday and the sun's shining. Like you said, there's no clouds, and yet you're still able to get some detail inside the incline as well. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's wood. It's all wood, original wood on the inside of the car, and it's like a hammer coppered ceiling. Yeah,
nice. So the next one is quite interesting. It's basically two different angles of the same subject, right?
Right. This is it's a statue of George Washington and Native American Chief Iasuka, and it's called Meeting at the Point. And and they're basically this was after a meeting they had, I think, right around the Revolutionary War, before Washington became president, but after he was general of the army, and meeting with one of the local leaders of the local tribes. And the picture on top, and the nice thing is, depending on where you look at, you can either kind of look through, you can either look at Washington or at Iasuka. And the one view is looking at downtown Pittsburgh between the two on top. And the bottom one, I'm looking towards, I kind of, and this was not on 100% purpose, but I got some other people who were just kind of walking around, one person kind of sitting, and looked like they were just kind of sitting between the two statues. And that one's overlooking the football stadium.
Oh yeah, yeah, I see it now.
So yeah, the big mustard color thing.
Yeah.
The big gold thing is the football stadium. So it's a and this is right off the incline, and it just gives you a nice overlook of the city.
Yeah, it is a nice view from up on top of that hill, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yes. So I mean, speaking of view, so yeah, there's so is there like a plaque or something that explains all this stuff on? Yeah. Okay, that's cool. All right. So if you're in the Pittsburgh area, folks, you'll be able to read up on this. If should you go and see it. And you know what, the detail in the sculpting is pretty cool too. The feather has the texture in it and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. And I did tone down some of the. There's actually a lot more detail in the face, but I wanted to tone it down a little because it was almost distracting. It's like almost too grainy, too detailed. So I toned it down a little bit.
Oh, okay, cool. How'd you do that?
Basically, it was in Polar, and I used the clarity, and I toned it down instead of toning it up.
Oh, okay, yeah, good idea.
So
right on.
So like that's maybe why like the city is not as clear in the background. But it's still, it's still clear enough you can tell the individual buildings per se.
But it kind of gives you the sense of maybe a hot day and a bit of haze going on.
Oh yeah,
with the sun being.
There was a good amount. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So this third one is one of my favorite subjects about Pittsburgh, and it's a bunch of bridges.
Yeah. So these are the three rivers. And this was pretty much taken very. So basically, if you look at downtown Pittsburgh, which is a triangle, the top one is looking to the left up the Allegheny. The middle one's the Mon River, and the bottom one is the Ohio. So you're pretty much looking in one location, kind of looking around the three rivers. And you can kind of see why there has to be that many bridges. Because there's rivers everywhere, and it's kind of impossible to get around them.
Yeah, that's crazy. And how many bridges did you say were there? Like 22 bridges or something?
It just in the photos. Yeah, I think I counted 22. And some of these are like.
I was just trying to count, but I'm losing count. So there's some that are way off in the distance too. Oh yeah, out there.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah, that's
and there's
cool.
some bridges which are kind of like the bottom image. You have the very close one that you can only see the top of, the yellow one.
Yeah.
That's the west end. Then you have a railroad bridge. And then there's a blue bridge, which is kind of an arch bridge, if you look on the right. But that's only part of the bridge because it keeps going on
to
the left. And there's another arch bridge, but that's one long structure going over the whole thing. So that's a mile wide, the whole thing.
Wow.
But it's kind of like how it, looking at the different directions, you can see all the bridges and the different types of bridges and the different ages of bridges. Some of these are, some of them are quote unquote new bridges, meaning they're from the 60s. And some are old bridges from like the 30s and the 1920s. And there's one from the 1880s, which is still up.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they say not to take pictures in midday sun, but you know what? These actually work. It's not, there's a bit of, harsh contrast, but that's okay because these Grand Vista style images, they seem to work a lot better in harsh sunlight than say you were trying to get a picture of somebody close up or something that's a lot closer to the camera. So I think they work well. And basically you've got 3 panels here, which is pretty cool.
Right. And that's the other thing is that with the newer iPhones, you can select the aspect ratio. So
Yeah.
I actually took that in 16:9.
Mm-hmm.
These three are, so it was already framed on the camera, so I wouldn't have to crop it after the fact and try to guess the best way to do it. And
Yeah.
remember,
Yeah.
if you take something in 16:9, you can always, it does take a larger photo. So you can always go in after the fact and adjust the aspect ratio to a 4:3 if you want to.
Right. Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
that's
you
right.
don't lose it. But it's kind of like I kind of knew I wanted that, like you said, that sweeping look to it, where you can
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Always love seeing pictures of Pittsburgh. It's a quite an interesting city for sure. So my three, I'll just get the screen share back up. So last episode, I showed a picture of a dock that was taken during golden hour. Some camera club folks we met down by the Bayside at golden hour, and we're shooting some different things in the golden light and whatnot. And this is another one that I took on that same outing, and it's basically this tree is up on a hill, and there's a bench beside it, and a couple other smaller trees growing down on the downside of the hill on the other side. And basically, it's the sun's going down, everything's silhouetted, but you can see these two jet planes in the sky. It's almost like they're following each other because they're both going.
Mm-hmm.
If you drew a line down between the two, they'd be right on line with each other. And they were just, flying along, minding their own business. But it was, just the golden light and the way everything was silhouetted, and the light transitions up to blue yet at the top of the frame. And I just thought it was kind of a cool thing, the way the trees silhouetted, and along the top of the hill, you can see where the grass is and all the little blades of grass on the top. And I just thought it was an interesting concept. A friend of mine in the club, she took one as well. Basically the same. It's the same composition, but she had her. She just got a new Sony camera. I'm not sure which one it is, but she took it with that, and I would hazard to guess it probably turned out very similar. So that was kind of a cool outing to be on, and catch the golden light at so the light right down by the ground is nice and gold and yellow, and then, like I say, it kind of gradients up to a blue color up in the sky because the sun was just kind of going down. So my second one,
I love the little detail there, like you said, especially it's amazing it picked up the grass.
Yeah, I was surprised at that too. I basically just let it autofocus. I didn't really, touch the screen anywhere to focus. Mm-hmm. Took it with reflex, and I'm assuming it just picked up the tree to focus on, but the grass must have been, in the same focal plane as that tree, or awful close to it. So, my second one is, whenever I take the dog for a walk in the neighborhood here, there's this fence. And I'm not sure if I've ever showed this before on the show, but this, I've got a lot of different pictures of this fence with these branches growing around through it from some kind of a tree or a vine or something. It's got to be like a tree that kind of got intertwined in the boards of the fence. And a lot of the pictures I have prior to this there was hardly any leaves, or maybe no leaves. But this year, the leaves are really coming out on this. I'm going to call it a tree, I guess. And it was taken near dusk on this one time I was walking the dog, and so the top is really dark. I had to open up the blacks a little bit to get some detail out of there, but so there's a walkway that goes between the two streets, and it's about maybe 6 feet wide, and there's a chain link fence on each side of it. So I had to kind of lean my hand over the fence Hopefully the dog didn't see a squirrel and took off and dragged me with her, but so that's how I take these is I just lean over, try to keep it as straight as I can and snap the picture with my thumb on the shutter button on the screen. And it just, it's kind of, I don't know, silly maybe, but it's just something that catches my eye every time I walk by. And it's interesting to see how it's changing over the times. It used to be full of leaves and stuff, but they've trimmed it back, and that's why there was no leaves on it for quite some time.
Well, I can see that because honestly, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking that fence is just going to get destroyed.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
The stuff growing in between, yeah. Now, let me ask you, have you thought about using the timer to take a photo?
No, I haven't. That's a good idea.
Hit the button, grab the camera a little more securely, and hold it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
You can do that 10-minute. You can do that 10-second. You can hit the button, make sure you grab it good, and then or even because use your Apple Watch as the viewfinder as you're trying to hold it down. That way, you don't have to play hut and see with the with the watch with the shot there.
That's a good idea, and thank you for that because I think I'll try that next time. We got some rain in the forecast, so it might not be tomorrow, but next time I do walk through there, I'm going to try that, Dave. That's a heck of an idea. So that's just the local fence. I'm going to put like a slideshow together of all the different photos I have of that and try to line all the images up as best I can so that you can actually see the transitions go through as from one time to the next. So might be something interesting little project.
Mm-hmm.
My third one is just a boardwalk. My wife and I took a drive over to a place called Southampton, and it's a little town on the Lake Huron shoreline, about 20-25 minutes from here, and very, very famous for sunsets. It's a beautiful little town, and in the beach area, there's we parked in a parking lot right by the beach, and there's like a French fry stand there and whatnot. And this is just one of the boardwalks that would actually go out to the beach itself. And I wanted to keep it, keep the shot tight so that you couldn't see too much stuff around it. So I used the Reflex app and the Reflex 60 millimeter telephoto lens on the wide camera. I could have used just the telecamera on my iPhone, but I wanted to take advantage of that extra aperture, the extra light coming in. So I put the telephoto lens on that camera, and so you can see around the edges. It's just a little soft. That's the one thing, that lens is good for. It's more. I think it's better for portrait work and things like that. Things where, when if the edges get soft, it's okay. They're going to be soft anyway. So a shot like this, maybe not the best idea, but I think it still kind of works. It almost looks like maybe the breeze was blowing, but it's just a boardwalk that's got sand on each side and tall grass is growing, and kind of goes up in almost like a little S up through the frame. And I pondered on doing this in black and white, but I just like the color better because the green kind of pops out a little bit.
Yeah, so I think you definitely need the color here, just because the sand and the boardwalk itself, the texture is kind of similar. So you need the contrasty with the green. That worked out good. Like I said, even the edging being a little bit softer, because you want to focus on the boardwalk itself. I think that's fine.
Yeah, and I actually focused on the about 8 boards up from the bottom. There's one board there that's a little darker than the rest, and it's got a little more texture to it. That's actually where I put the focus in the shot. just because it kind of caught my eye, and I wanted that board to be in the sharpest focus. So, so yeah, it was a good outing. I took a few different shots around over there, but I think this one is probably the best one of the day. So, always fun to get out of town and shoot some stuff. So, all right. Well, I think we're going to call it a show there, Dave.
No, that sounds
good. Just looking forward to seeing what we can do with iOS 16 and whatnot, and see what, they never tell you everything that's coming out. They always just highlight a few things. Right. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out, in the focus in the Photos app, maybe with editing, there might be some, better tools and things to look forward to. So, we'll see what happens. And, obviously as things go on, we'll either see them on Twitter, or I might even experience them on my old iPhone, and whatever comes up, we'll definitely report on it, in future episodes.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So, well, tell everybody where they could find you.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as ProfPod. I pretty much populate everything. So I've been also putting on TikTok some photo stuff, some nonsense stuff too. But if I do like of the walk, I use the Apple Memory feature. So I created an album of the photos, and I let it create its thing, and I was happy with the result. So I didn't even bother to go into iMovie or Clips or anything else. Like, you know what? I'm pretty happy how that turned out, so I'll just put it up. So I normally put up as a reel, as an Instagram, little video thing, and Facebook, and TikTok is ProfPodPGH. And it's so weird, but I get a lot more views on TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, that's weird.
Order of magnitude, as in Instagram Reel. I think they're Instagram Reels.
Yep. Reels.
Okay. Yeah, I got, of the same video, 30 or 40 views, and on TikTok I had 450.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. I think it's clear to see that more people are using TikTok than they are Instagram Reels.
Yeah, and I have less. I have less followers on TikTok than Instagram, but it's perking it up somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
So I've been trying just to not like I'm showing off, like, oh, look at my wonderfulness, but just to share. And if I had, like I said, you're never quite sure what's going to be the next big thing with share.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, we'll have links to all those in the show notes, and you can find me on Instagram at Macmillan Photo, Twitter Macmillan_photo, and my website is shotoniPhoneonly.com. I've been getting lazy. I gotta get it updated again, but you can find both Dave and I on the iPhoneography podcast Facebook group and the iPhone photo team community over on the Mighty Networks, where Scott Bourne and Jefferson Graham and Rich Harrington host a wonderful community of iPhone shooters over there. So check that out. There's a link for that in the show notes. And well, Dave, thanks for remembering some stuff about WWDC that I missed. And
that's why it's better to have more than one person on. You can always bounce things to someone else.
Yeah, that's right. So, okay, well, we'll see everybody on the next one. Have a good one.
Great one, everyone.